Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. My name is Michael Francis. Wherever you are listening from, I am a seeker of truth. Let's begin. Alright, so last time we did Genesis chapter 9. Yep. This time we're going to do chapters 10 and 11. Okay? A little bit of a deeper dive this time than last time. I'm titling this one with More Genealogies and the Tower of Babel. I know genealogies can be boring, but we're going to get through them and it's going to be okay. And they do hold meaning, so as we've already discussed. And then we're going to get to my deeper dive on what I found. Okay? Alright. So let's start at chapter 10. These are the family records of Noah's sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth. They also had sons after the flood. Japheth's son, Gomer, Magog, Madai, Javan, Tubal, Meshech, and Tyrus. Gomer's sons, Ashkenaz, Raphath, and Togarmah, and Javan's sons, Elisha, Tarshish, Kittim, and Dudanim. From these descendants, the peoples of the coasts and islands spread out into their lands according to their clans in their nations, each with its own language. Okay, these are tough names, but we'll get through them. You might read them a little bit differently, but we'll see. Ham's sons, Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. Cush's sons, Seba, Havilah, Sabta, Ramah, and Sabteka, and Ramah's sons, Sheba and Dedan. Cush fathered Nimrod, who began to be powerful in the land. So we're going to pay attention with Nimrod. Okay, we're going to get to that in my deeper dive. He was a powerful hunter in the sight of the Lord. That is why it is said, like Nimrod, a powerful hunter in the sight of the Lord. His kingdom started with Babylon, remember that, Erech, Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. From that land he went to Assyria and built Nineveh, Rehoboth, Calah, and Rezin, between Nineveh and the great city Calah. Canaan fathered Sidon, his firstborn, and Heth, as well as the Jebusites, the Amorites, the Girgashites, the Hivites, the Arkites, the Sinites, the Arvadites, the Zemarites, and the Hamathites. Afterward, the Canaanite clans scattered. The Canaanite border went from Sidon going toward Gerar as far as Gaza, and going towards Sodom, Gomorrah, Admah, and Zeboim as far as Lasha. Now notice what it said there, and this is going to come up in chapter 11 and the deeper dive. Afterward, the Canaanite clans scattered. So remember that. These are Ham's sons by their clans, according to their languages, in their lands and their nations. And Shem, Japheth's older brother, also had sons. Shem was the father of all the sons of Eber. Shem's sons were Elam, Asher, Arpachshad, Lud, and Aram. Aram's sons Uz, Hul, Gether, and Mash. These are the family records of Shem. Shem lived 100 years after... Oh, I think I might have skipped something. Hold on. Yeah, I skipped way down. Whoa. Plans, nations, and... Give me just a minute here. Figure out why it skipped so far. Mash. Okay, there we are. Arpachshad fathered Shelah, and Shelah fathered Eber. Eber had 2 sons. One was named Peleg, for during his days the earth was divided. His brother was named Joktan, and Joktan fathered Almodad, Sheleph, Hazarmaveth, Yerah, Hadoram, Uzal, Diklah, Obal, Abimael, Sheba, Ophir, Havilah, and Jobab. All these were Joktan's sons. Their settlements extended from Mesha to Sephar, the eastern hill country. See, for some reason it keeps skipping way down. These are Shem's sons by their clans, according to their languages, in their lands and their nations. These are the clans of Noah's sons, according to their family records in their nations. The nations on earth spread out from these after the flood. Now we're going to go to chapter 11, which is the story of the Tower of Babel. Okay? Which is where we really got to pay attention, because that's in the deeper dive. And like I said, remember Nimrod and remember Tower of Babel, Babylon. The whole earth had the same language and vocabulary. So you'll notice in the genealogies it said they had their own languages and everything else. So this is before all this spreading out. Okay, so it kind of... But you had to understand the genealogies before you could understand what happened at the Tower of Babel. So that's why, I think that's why it's set up this way in Genesis. So it's kind of backtracking, almost like you tell a story, but then you backtrack and you go, okay, hold on, I got to go back to the beginning, so that way you can understand where I was coming from with what I said previously. Anyways, the whole earth had the same language and vocabulary. As people migrated from the east, they found a valley in the land of Shinar and settled there. They said to each other, "Come, let's make oven-fired bricks." They used brick for stone and asphalt for mortar. And they said, "Come, let's build ourselves a city and a tower with its top in the sky. Let's make a name for ourselves. Otherwise, we will be scattered throughout the earth." If you remember, that's what Yahweh, God, the Almighty, told Noah and his sons to do. Be fruitful, multiply, spread out. They decided, nope. In their sinful nature, we're going to do our own thing, God. You're not going to scatter us. We're going to stick together. Okay? Then the Lord came down to look over the city and the tower that the humans were building. The Lord said, "If they have begun to do this as one people, all having the same language, then nothing they plan to do will be impossible for them. Come, let's go down there and confuse their language so that they will not understand one another's speech." So from there the Lord scattered them throughout the earth, and they stopped building the city. Therefore it is called Babylon. For there the Lord confused the language of the whole earth, and from there the Lord scattered them throughout the earth. So this is the genealogy from Shem to Abram, or as most people know him, Abraham. So this is going to get into my next big study in chapter 12, the story of Abraham. But this is kind of the setup for it, okay? Where we're going to leave off for the day. These are the family records of Shem. Shem lived 100 years and fathered Arpachshad 2 years after the flood. After he fathered Arpachshad, Shem lived 500 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Arpachshad lived 35 years and fathered Shelah. After he fathered Shelah, Arpachshad lived 403 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Shelah lived 30 years and fathered Eber. After he fathered Eber, Shelah lived 403 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Eber lived 34 years and fathered Peleg. After he fathered Peleg, Eber lived 430 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Monotony, right? But we're going to get through it. Peleg lived 30 years and fathered Reu. After he fathered Reu, Peleg lived 209 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Reu lived 32 years and fathered Surag. After he fathered Surag, Reu lived 207 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Serug lived 30 years and fathered Nahor. After he fathered Nahor, Serug lived 200 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Nahor lived 29 years and fathered Terah. And after he fathered Terah, Nahor lived 119 years and fathered other sons and daughters. Terah lived 70 years and fathered Abraham, Nahor, and Haran. These are the family records of Terah. Terah fathered Abram, Nahor, and Haran fathered Lot. Haran did in his native land, in Ur of the Chaldees, during his father Terah's lifetime. Abram and Nahor took wives. Abram's wife was named Sarai, and Nahor's wife was named Milcah. She was the daughter of Haran, the father of both Milcah and Iscah. Sarai was unable to conceive. She did not have a child. Terah took his son Abram, his grandson Lot, Haran's son, and his daughter-in-law Sarai, his son Abram's wife, and they set out together from Ur of the Chaldeans and to go to the land of Canaan. But when they came to Haran, they settled there. Terah lived 205 years and died in Haran. So that's where we're going to leave off for today. We'll get into the story of Abram, or as God will come to call him, Abraham. He changes both his and his wife's name, Sarai. It's going to be Abraham and Sarah after that. And you'll see why with the promise and everything else, but that's for next time. Now we're going to dig into the notes. Okay, chapter 10, genealogies. As I've said before, they are important, but can be tedious. As you could tell, I was struggling trying to get through that. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, we get it. But they are important, so we need to read them so that we know. Because we will see that in the New Testament, like I've already said. No, here it is. They will track bloodlines that are important to God's promise of Messiah, or Christ. These lines in the Gospels will trace back to King David and even straight back to Adam and Eve. All right. So we're going to link chapter 10, verses 8 through 14, where we read about Nimrod, to 11, verses 1 through 9, which is the Tower of Babel and that account. Okay? Nimrod was an important figure. Orchestrated the building of the Tower of Babel. We know that because of the fact that even though it didn't list it in chapter 11, in chapter 10 it tells you who Nimrod was and the city that he built, which was Babylon. So the Tower of Babel, Babylon, it's all linked. Okay, so that's why we get where we're at. I think my opinion on the text, this is how we now have different and diverse cultures. We are one race, the human race, but by refusing to do as God commanded, to spread out, his hand was forced to make us separate as he originally intended. So that's why he confused the languages, and I think that's where, so with Adam and Eve, I don't know what, they have something called melanin or whatever. That's why we have skin tones, so we've got dark people, light people, people in between, I think that might have been what started this with Adam and Eve. It might have been a more neutral color. The reason why, Middle Easterns have the color that they have, it's like in between. And slowly the genomes, the genes and DNA made all the different skin tones that we see after spreading out. And that also, with the change of languages, made our different cultures and why things are so different depending upon where you live and where you come from and how you were raised, etc., etc. Okay, Tower of Babel itself. They tried to reach God in a way that God never intended, to become our own gods. Like Satan, this shows man's arrogance and pride, our sinful nature fully realized. But God is the Almighty, and everything He wishes to happen will. This account proves God's sovereignty. That is my opinion. It's not read in the text, but we know that to be true, right? So God's able to do what He wants, what He wishes. If He wants to force somebody to do something, He does have that ability. Now, we have our free will, and He does not want to inhibit that. You know, He wants people that are not automatons. He wants people that freely choose Him. Okay? And that's where sanctification, salvation, all that comes in, grace. But anyways, we'll get to that when we get to that. Bible's a big book. I think this shows where we were much more intelligent in the beginning. By these structures, we still can't figure out how they did it with such limited technology, i.e. the monoliths, the pyramids, stuff like that. Like, we have so many things as proofs that, dude, evolution would have you believe that, hey, we've gotten smarter as we've gone along. I contend with that. I think actually we were smartest when God created us with Adam and Eve. They had a much more full knowledge, and these people, these accounts within the Bible state otherwise as well. How would they reach the heavens, right? They had a much different understanding and intelligence that we don't even realize, and that's why we find things like the pyramids and other great structures, but we don't understand. They didn't have the technology. In fact, our cranes and high technology we have today can't even replicate the massive sizes and whatnot that they built on. So to me, that speaks to the fact that evolution has to be false, because we're not getting smarter, we're actually getting dumber. As proof with our technology, we don't, like, there's things that my grandfather knew, like being a handyman, things that he did that I would have never been able to figure out. Like, I have to watch YouTube videos and other such things. These are skills that he just learned and had and was handed down and stuff like that that was never handed down to me. That's why my room looks the way it does. It's kind of, yeah, it's my thing though. I love it. Anyways, yeah, so I think technically we're actually getting dumber, not smarter. My opinion though. All right. Last note. Chapter 11, 27 through 30, the family records of Abraham. This is where I'll end. This is the beginning of the account of Abraham, or the patriarchy, as we would call it. And Abraham, renamed by Yahweh God Himself. And the beginning of what He prophesied back in Genesis 3, verse 15. So we'll read that real quick again. So that way we can kind of see that. It says in Genesis chapter 3, verse 15, I will put hostility between you and the woman, and between your offspring and her offspring. He will strike your head, and you will strike his heel. This was prophesied from the beginning. This is the setup for the prophesied promise of Messiah from the very beginning of creation. And this is just the beginning of that story. Well, I say story. I hate saying story because people make it sound mythical and legend. It's not a story. It's the account. And this is what God has given us. So this is the beginning of it. So I will do the deep dive on that, on chapter 12, and we will get back to that when I get done with that. Okay? With that, I wish blessed day. Shalom upon all of you. May God bless you and keep you.